Hello everybody, it is Whiskey with Whiskey's Gaming Lounge. This is Factorio episode number 15. If you remember in the last episode, we did nothing. Really, we did nothing. I mean, we did something. We attempted to do something anyway. And, well, it didn't work out quite as planned. The goal was to find ourselves some additional resources, and really what we found was still more nothing. We are still distinctly lacking in anything resembling our resources that we need to continue. And by those resources, I am, of course, referring to the power situation. I suppose this means we're just going to have to use coal until I can actually find a legitimate, big-time, pain-in-the-rear style of, resource pile somewhere. That made no sense. Let's try that again. We're going to have to use coal until I actually find the resources to make and use our nuclear power mod. So, with that in mind, we have found and secured, partially, mostly, at least 3 good train stops. But before we do train stops, we need trains. So what we are going to do is we are going to create our train station up in here. And we are going to then pipe those resources into where they go. Now, with this being out here, it's a straight shot. We've got plenty of iron in this area. We've got some coal and some copper. We also can pipe in these oil into an oil because we are indeed still using the oil tanker mod, which gives us oil tankers. Woo! Okay. While that's happening, I believe we've got plenty of track. Yep, plenty of track. We've got rail cars. We are working on a locomotive. And as soon as that locomotive gets built, we can address those issues. Let's clean some of this up. Always use these miners later. And we're going to go on the other side of this lake over here for... Oh, hey! That just happened. I don't know if you guys caught that, but we just got attacked by biters. They're like graboids. They just pop up out of the ground, it seems like. Maybe not actually like graboids. I don't think that's an accurate statement. So this is the new system. I have no idea how to use it. As is quite obvious, I might add. Fascinating. Okay. I'm intrigued. I am very much intrigued. We're going to go past those. Then we're going to do this. Well, this certainly makes things a little less tedious. So, with that in mind, then, we need some of our big power poles. Since we are done making other things, we will use those big power poles as our template. Oh, it is done! We can launch rockets into space if we had the resources to do so, which we don't. We are nowhere near ready for that. So let's continue researching stuff. I think we need battery equipment that will research very quickly. Yup, very, very quickly. Upgrade builder. Upgrades entities within a certain range. That seems pretty unimportant right now. Portable solar panels. Alright. Because we all know solar panels are the future, right? Wrong. Solar panels are part of the future, but they certainly aren't the future. I'd welcome an honest debate about that subject. However, I have yet to meet anybody who is willing to have an honest debate about that. Which is really sad, because in the current state of affairs... No. In the current state of affairs, what's going on is the viable options that we have are being overlooked in favor of renewables. And let's face it, renewables, while great and beneficial, with the exception of like hydro and the exception of geothermal, it's really difficult to have any form of baseload power associated with those. And baseload is very important because our grid cannot handle the intermittency and dispersed nature of renewables. And because of that, it will be very difficult for renewables to take over a large portion of the electrical grid. Now, of course, you guys didn't come to this channel to listen to me complain about renewable subsidies and all that nonsense, but really the options that we have, because most of our hydro resources are either tapped out or the environmental impact is far too high for most environmentalists to feel comfortable with putting in more hydro. Geothermal has limited uses outside of areas that are near fault lines and volcanically active, although it can be done. It is done with very limited success. It's also a nuclear process. People don't want to admit that, but you know, the Earth's heat is entirely from the decay of radioactive isotopes. How many just learned something? If you didn't just learn something, well then, impressive. I know that there are people here that are very smart, so it would not surprise me if there... One more, apparently. This new system is very interesting. I'm not sure I'm fully sold on it. Mainly because I am terrible at estimating like that. See? This is what I'm talking about. Anyway, so when it comes to electrical resources, you know, electrical generating resources, that leaves only really a handful of options out there, and I know people are going to cringe when I say it, but nuclear is definitely one of our strongest options. And it's not because I'm particularly biased. I mean, I am, but it's just a realization that in terms of energy density, there's hardly anything else on the face of this earth that is quite as energy dense as nuclear power is. I mean, we can literally pluck one of these things down. 3, 4, 5, 6. I done screwed it up. We'll make it work. We'll make this oil. Where was I? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Damn it. 2, 3, 4. Stop it! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. When it comes to energy density, though, it's really a hard sell not to look at nuclear with any form of seriousness. Now I hear you all arguing, oh well, there's the waste aspect and this and that. The waste aspect, you know, I'll give you that's a tough challenge. However, we can't just ignore nuclear power because there's aspects of it that we think are unsafe. In fact, there's plenty of examples of this in the real world in which, you know, we have to deal with and work around the problems to, you know, get through temporary short-term issues. Now, interestingly enough, one of the most interesting things that I've ever had the privilege of learning about is the concept of the molten salt waste burner reactor. If you're not familiar with what molten salts are, This is probably as good a time as any to go ahead and talk about that. Molten salt reactor technology. Molten salts. The most likely to be used molten salt is the lithium fluoride beryllium salt, aka FLIBE. FLIBE is a... Wow, that's cool. FLIBE is a very stable salt. It does not react with water or air. At least not negatively, I should clarify. It does not react negatively with water or air. And the... in terms of reacting with metals like structural steels and all of that, it also has the added benefit of being something that we actually have an answer to the, you know, reaction issues with it. So, I mean, in terms of things that we... Did I put those on the right side? Yeah, okay. In terms of stability, you know, we have the technology to work around the out of rocket fuel. I don't want to use rocket fuel. We're going to power these things with coal eventually. We actually have rail tanker. Rail tanker? Who built these rail tanker things? Anyway, in terms of capabilities, you know, we have the technology, we have the material science know-how to build a FLIBE-resistant metal, and these molten salt reactors, they're... The way the technology is set up, that they can consume current nuclear waste. Current nuclear waste, of course, being, if you remember from the uranium power mods highlight, I talked about enrichment. The vast majority of the enrichment processes, we can only consume the uranium-235. Well, uranium-235 isn't found in large quantities in nature. It is only found in large quantities in... when we enrich it, and in order to enrich it, we have to have a certain properties, and we have to do things to the ores in order to get the enriched aspect out of it. Now, what remains after we pull those rods out of the reactors, you get all these high-level transuranic waste, which is the stuff that's larger than uranium on the periodic table. And there's a lot of that unburned or unconsumed uranium-238. And uranium-238 is the natural stuff. That's like 99.3% of all uranium found in nature. Remember, we enrich it to between 3 and 5% to use in reactors. That enrichment process leaves us with the uranium-238 as the byproduct, and it also leaves the... Take this. Also leaves the... when it's consumed in a reactor, all the uranium-235 is consumed in a reactor. We also get the leftovers. So those leftovers are that uranium-238 and all those transuranics. Now the transuranics we can consume. Some of them are fissile. The plutoniums are certainly fissile. Some of them are anyway. And the other ones, they can be at least bombarded with neutrons until they turn into something that is either stable or not harmful. We'll call this guy the Iron Depot. This will be the FARL station. This will be the Copper Depot. This will be Coal Depot. This will be the Oil Depot. And this. Oh, where they are all named. Anyway, going back to the molten salt reactor tech, because if you're still listening, you're probably rolling your eyes a bit right now. The advantages that we have with... He is in the iron depot. Inventory empty. With molten salt, we have the ability to consume that uranium-238, and how that works is it basically works in the fast spectrum. We hit it with a neutron, it turns into plutonium-239, and it can then be split. Now, plutonium-239 is made naturally inside of most nuclear reactors as a byproduct. It is not produced in any meaningful quantity in terms of adding to the life of solid fuels, but the advantages of molten salt involve dissolving the fuel, so dissolving the uranium, whether that's uranium-238, uranium-233 from the thorium fuel cycle, or uranium-235 from our current cycle. We take that and we dissolve it into the salts, which it can be dissolved into the salts quite easily. We fluorinate it, it gets turned into UF6, which can then be reduced to UF4, which can then be put into the salt. And because of that, we get a near 100% burn-up of all that fuel. And that is a huge advantage when it comes down to everything that current technology for nuclear reactors, that's one of the biggest complaints as well. It produces waste. Okay, we can fix that. That's solvable. And with molten salt, we can consume that leftover waste. We can also, and this is the biggest reason why I like molten salt, we can also go ahead and use the thorium fuel cycle in a really easy to use manner. Right now, if we were to try and use thorium with a solid fuels, we would have to find some way to pull that solid fuel out because of the way that the fuel cycle works, where it turns into thorium-233, which then decays into protactinium-233, which then decays over about a month to uranium-233. That process, protactinium, is a huge neutron poison which absorbs neutrons and stops the nuclear reaction. We don't want that. We don't want to stop that nuclear reaction. We want it to keep going. So in order to accomplish that, we have to be able to pull that stuff out, otherwise all that protactinium is going to ruin our day and poison our nuclear reactor. We don't want that at all. We want... Wow, that was a lot of belt. So let's upgrade things. We want to go ahead and pull that stuff out so that it doesn't hurt our reactor. Now we can do that quite easily in a molten salt reactor. We cannot in solid fuels. And that is the distinct advantage to molten salt. Thorium is about as common in the ground as lead, which I'm sure, as you know, is far more common than the uranium stuff that we are currently consuming. That is a tremendous advantage in terms of fuel resources. Also, what the waste that is produced, because we are consuming so much of it, is very, 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 very easy to store. It's all the fission products and some plutonium-238. Now, plutonium-238 can't be used in a bomb. However, it is used to make the RTGs that power nuclear, the radioisotope thermoelectric generators, RTGs, on spacecraft. And NASA really wants this stuff. In fact, they just restarted their reactor to try and make some of this on their own. We bought all the stuff, all of it that the Russians have. they don't really care to give up any more than they've currently given up. And for obvious reasons, I can see why they wouldn't want to. It's pretty valuable stuff. In terms of like radiation stuff, it's pretty safe to handle, with the exception of the massive amounts of heat that it puts off. It's a weak alpha emitter and can be blocked by your skin. Uh-oh. In terms of the other stuff that gets produced in these reactors, it's all what they call fission products, which is the stuff that is created when you split uranium. And that stuff is very easy to store long term because it's in a stable salt. It can be vitrified, which means it can be turned into glass. Glass is very inert with regards to long-term storage. It was far easier to store things as glass than it is to store it as anything else. Uh-oh. Oh. Turret got him. So with that in mind, I mean, you can see how that would be a pretty significant advantage going in, to have all of that stuff and have access to it and legitimately utilize it. I mean, right now we are so underutilizing our fuel that it's almost wasteful, is a way to think about it. Anyway, I think molten salt has a really big advantage in that regard and would be a huge benefit to society if we would go ahead and be utilizing it. Let's see here. That's enough of that. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing me talk about nuclear stuff. But anyway, solar panels, that's how that rant started. We'll have to avoid that topic here in the not too distant future. We're trying to get all these little piddly research things out of the way because really it's just in the way. What? Oh, my inventory's full. That's why it's not working. Go there. And I don't know what happened to the to those belts. I am really interested to see what happened with those. Where'd they go? Oh, they'll crop up eventually. There we go. It's still going. Produce it, produce it, produce it. Goodness gracious, we can't seem to get it away from here fast enough. Whoa. Sure, since we started to. Didn't really need to. Okay. It looks like we are going to have to start doing some electric furnace stuff. In order to do electric furnace, we need a lot of stone brick. In order to get a little more stone brick, we need to come down here. We've started ourselves up with a pretty good and healthy amount of track. We've gotten that all set up over there. We will also want to eventually also eventually want to go ahead and get some resources piped over there. 15 engines, I don't think that's enough for another. Nope. So we'll get FARL set up. And from there, man, we need to go look at our iron line. We'll have to do that in another episode. For right now, we're going to get FARL set up, at least get him placed. His icon is missing. That's going to be mildly terrifying. I hope he himself is not missing. Ah, we just got to... Yeah, they upgraded him. Nice. There is FARL. Now, FARL works really well in this game. Basically, all we have to do is load him up with our resource, whatever it is. So in this case, it will be signals and track. And once he's going, we set up a pattern. As we go along, he will place track. So we've started this down here. We will, I think FARL, if I remember correctly, we should be able to deal with him without my cargo. Wood. It'll be interesting to see how this works out and see if we've got enough, if he's been trains. Okay. We'll go ahead and do bridge of water. So, with regards to what's going on here, what we need a blueprint. That too. Okay. So this is our FARL blueprint. Now, me personally, I don't like the way they have this all set up, so we will redo this whole blueprint, but we're going to do it a little bit more exciting way. No. Clear the blueprint. Okay. We need our tall electrical poles. We need one chain signal and one regular signal. Driving on the left, yes, that's right. And the chain signal. And I think we need to do it this way. Okay, so with how this works then is we will select it, we will put it into a blueprint, it will, yep, have that. We can go ahead and take all this stuff out. Now we need to do a diagonal one as soon as we get done loading this into FARL. Read it, save blueprint. Boom. Okay, let's do we need an empty blueprint. Diagonal. Okay, so the diagonal one is in here, as you can see. It's pretty annoying. We don't need that. Where's my big... Yep. Is that right? I think that's right. I think this is actually in the wrong place. signal and chain signal. Create. Clear this out. Jump into FARL. Read. And save. Now, if we've done everything right, which I'm just going to go ahead and assume we didn't. Let's go ahead and take FARL down here. Save the settings. If we do this right, let's expand this guy, because if we don't, FARL will get confused. Settings, we want to do this every 30. Save the settings. Alright, so we should be able to hit start, and you should start placing things. Why can't we place rail? There it goes. Oh, it's out of big electrical poles. That's fine. We'll come back and do this in a minute. So as you can see, it'll keep going until we run out of rails, until we run out of stuff. It will also pick up all of the wood as well. So let's back him up. Let's make sure that we get this section back here taken care of. As you can see, this is a pretty powerful tool. And I believe that's correct. Anyway, we'll go park him back since FARL is not, since we don't have a turnaround, and then we will call that this for this episode. As you can see, FARL is pretty useful. We just need to load him up with all the resources that we've got. And once he's loaded up, with all the resources, he becomes very useful. And we can lay a whole bunch of track in a relatively quick time, and then we can come finish setting up all of this. But we will pick that up in the next Factorio Let's Play. This has been Whiskey with Whiskey's Gaming Lounge. I want to thank you guys for being extremely patient with me with regards to the delay in releasing videos. I was gone racing all this last weekend and didn't have much of an opportunity to do any of the Let's Play videos. So, with that in mind, thanks again for being patient. As with always, if you guys like what you're seeing, go ahead and throw some comments down. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.